going to show you how to do some simple rigging in Blender so that you can repose STL files. And we're going to be working with this hand up here. So we got to open up Blender first. General is fine here. Now anytime you open up, start a new Blender project, you're going to have the default cube and some lighting. This is your light box, and we want to get rid of all of this here. Start fresh. Now we want to import the STL file. Let's go to File, Import, STL. You want to navigate to where you have that. Now, unfortunately, there is no preview of files in here, so you kind of have to know what file you're opening in advance, or have a separate Finder window open so you sort of preview your file. But I'll go ahead and import, and there's our arm. It's big. Now, navigating in Blender is a little bit different than Mesh Mixer. You really need a 3-button mouse to navigate in Blender. So you use that scroll wheel, or that third button. You sort of push that in, and then you can pan around your object. If you want to sort of just move over, you have to hold Shift and that third button to kind of pull around like this. Then you use that scroll wheel to zoom in and out. So navigation takes a little bit of getting used to. To actually move the model, you select it by clicking on it, and you have to hit G. I think G for grab. And now you can move it around freely like this. You can hit X to move it along the X axis, Y for the Y, and then Z up and down like this. But that's how you move around an object. So it takes some getting used to. Very different than Mesh Mixer. I'm gonna go ahead and drop that. Rotating a model, you select it and hit R for rotate. And that's how you rotate things around. Same thing, you can hit X to rotate around the X axis, Y, and Z. Okay, now you see where my arrows are. There's that little yellow dot down there. That's sort of where the origin point is for this model. That's not where we want it. So I'm gonna escape to get out of here. I'm gonna right click on the object and set origin, and then I'm gonna go origin to center of mass. And that kind of puts it in the middle of the model. That's just going to make rotating things around a little bit easier here. First thing we want to do is we're going to want to go up to, I think what I'm actually going to do first is I want to rotate this around. So I'm going to hit R to rotate, and then Y, nope, Z, get it here, good. Gonna pan around here, hit R again, get the arm going up like R, up like that. That looks good. And hit G, sort of bring it in the center here. All right, I like that. Okay. Now, need to start bringing in bones, which in Blender they call an armature. So we want to go up to your add and down to armature. And it's really small because this arm is pretty big. So we want to scale this bone up. To scale things, you hit the S key. And now I can just pull. And the nice thing about Blender is as you're pulling to drag, you can just go off the screen and you'll come across on the other side. Okay. So we should start. I'm gonna hit G to grab my armature and move it. There it is. And I'm gonna hit S again, scale that up. Okay, so that is our first bone. I'm gonna hit G to grab it. And you see it kind of disappears when it goes inside of the arm here. So with the armature selected, I'm gonna go over to my tool panel over here, click on this little guy here. These are armature options. I'm gonna go to viewport display, and I'm going to choose in front. And now this means no matter where this is in space, it's always going to be in front of the model. So you can always see it. All right, so I'm going to sort of place this bone right here. I'll pan around, make sure. All right, now I want it to follow the existing bones as much as I can. So I'm going to grab the bone, hit R to rotate it a little. There we go. Again, rotate it this way, G to grab it, move it over, rotate it a little bit more. Okay. And looks like we have to come back just a little bit. Okay, first bone. All right, now we want to add additional bones to this. So with the armature selected, I'm going to go from object mode to edit mode. Now it already highlighted this joint here. I'm going to hit E for extrude. And that's going, I can then pull out a new bone. I'm going to come right up to the wrist. All right, and that's good. That stayed right inside as well. I don't have to move it around yet. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to start making bones for the hand here. So with this is still selected, I'll hit E to extrude again. Come right up to there. E again to the first joint, next joint, and last, just like that. Okay, from here I'm just going to rotate around. See, it is not where I want it. So this one is, the end is still selected. I can just hit G to grab it. I'm just going to pull it over, grab this one, G, pull it over. It's resizing as I do that, which is nice. Right here, here, and here. Now it's lined up from the side. It's not perfect here. That's okay. I'm just going to grab here, here, just like that. Okay. All right, and I'll just quickly go ahead and do the other one. So I'll grab this joint here, E to extrude. I'll go ahead and just make sure that these all look lined up like I want before I do the thumb. This is where it gets a little tricky with, especially when, you know, in front, they start to overlap each other. Doesn't have to be totally perfect, but you want it pretty close and sort of inside that mesh as best you can. All right, that looks good. We'll go ahead and do the thumb. Select that joint, hit E to extrude up to here, here, and here. Just pan around, move those joints. Pull them back in, here, here, and here. All right, now hand is probably gonna be one of the more complicated objects you do because just of all the bones. But if you're just taking sort of like a single part, like a set of legs, and just bending them, you know, you don't have to get this complex. But if you can do a hand like this, you can do bend just around any other part. All right. So now we've got our armature. I'm gonna go back out to object mode. And now what I want to do is we have to, these are two separate objects. We have to, what they call parent them. All right, so we're gonna grab the arm first, hold down shift, click any one of the bones. Now you have the whole armature selected. Then you have to do Control P as in Paul. And this is to parent the two objects. So what we want to do is this armature deform with automatic weights. Click on that. Now, this could take a while depending on the complexity of the STL file and how many bones you have in your armature. My computer does not handle Blender that great, so sometimes this can take a few minutes. Okay, so that did take about 6 or 8 minutes to finish that process. Now you can see it's sort of nested that arm within the armature, so this is all parented now. All right, so what we want to do is select the armature, and now from object mode we're going to go to pose mode, and now we can start to bend this. So I will grab this bone here. Now it highlights blue, and I'll hit R to rotate, and I can now slowly bend this arm. Now it's got to be within reason. You don't want to necessarily do something like that, but when you're moving these STL files, you want to get an arm or a pose that's already kind of close, and just, you know, pull a little bit. So now we could bend the arm like that. Let's see, we could pull it in this way. And same thing, we can move around the fingers too if we'd like. So we'll grab this bone here. And you can do X, Y, and Z if you want to stay on an axis. So yeah, you sort of pull and you kind of rotate around, grab individual bones. This is great if you want to get, if you're adding like a football and you want to move the finger, you want to have the fingers make sure that they're actually sort of grabbing around the ball the right way. It's very easy to sort of, get something that looks a little bit unnatural, so watch that. You're going to have to keep sort of like panning around to make sure. See, that looks broken, but you get the idea. You might just have to keep sort of panning around until you get something, so you get the pose that you're looking for. There you go. So that's how you move around the parts there. We'll go back to object mode. And let's see if I hide that armature like so. You can see that we've bent the arm, we've moved the fingers, and then from there you would select the object, go to File, and Export, and then Export STL, and then name it, and now you've got an arm that you can bring into Mesh Mixer or just set up for printing. But that's how you add a rig and repose an STL part. Okay, so I just opened up another file that I had been working on earlier, doing a Clay Matthews Predator pose. So here is the sort of the original Clay Matthews torso, which I needed the back arched a little bit more, and I needed the shoulders adjusted. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna hide the lower body here. And so this was the armature I built for that. And if I select this, go up into pose mode, see I was able to, his shoulders were way up here originally, so I was able to bring the shoulders down a little bit, and then as well as rotating the body a little bit well to arch the back. Okay, so that's sort of the possibilities that you have with this. Same thing if I go add back the upper legs. Okay, very simple skeleton on that. Okay, I'm gonna hide this just so it's out of the way. Okay, I think these were the long snapper legs. Okay, so just a single bone here, and then sort of the hips off of there, and then the thigh bones. And with that, select that, go into pose mode. I was able to get the legs out to where I needed them, so I think they were down here originally. But you can do like I said, you have to start with something that's already pretty close, because any extreme movement's gonna really can really alter the original file. But it's great for just making minor alterations, and it keeps the mesh a lot more blended. Now in this case here, we got some real weirdness going on in here that didn't happen on this side, and I've seen that when there's sort of errors with the mesh. So if you get weird stuff like this, sometimes you have to go back to the original STL file and just take a look at the mesh to make sure that there's not something weird happening in here. Like, it could be as simple as like a little hole in the mesh that you have to fill. But I've seen that kind of happen. It worked out okay in this case because the torso was going to be covering that whole area. But that's just sort of something you have to watch out for. So hopefully this was helpful.